Yeah, we back. Yeah, we back. Now today's gonna be a quick video. I want to talk about Nathalie Yamb. Shout out to Nathalie Yamb. If you're not familiar, Nathalie Yamb is a social media influencer, a commentator, somewhat similar to me, right? But I'm in the Anglophone space. I'm in the English-speaking Pan-African world. She's in the French-speaking Pan-African world, right? And Nathalie Yamb is definitely one of those individuals on social media that definitely inspired me to do what I do and start engaging in commentary and speaking truth to power. So shout out to Auntie Nathalie Yamb. Before we get started, much love and respect as always. You know, Neferkari Dessalines gonna always have love for you forever. Now, today's video is gonna be about some interesting news that I've seen recently in the past couple of days. Apparently, Nathalie Yamb has been sanctioned by the European Union. She's been banned from the European Union. Now, first things first, round of applause for Auntie Nathalie Yamb. You see, obviously, I got to get my weight up. I got to put in more work because I haven't been banned from the European Union yet. I haven't been banned yet or sanctioned. So obviously, I got to put in more work. Round of applause for Auntie Nathalie Yamb. But anyways, let's get into it, right? As you can see, Nathalie Yamb is a sanctioned entity. Now, let's get into some of this information. As you can see, take a look up on the screen. The European Union has banned Cameroonian activist Nathalie Yamb from entering the territory, following a similar measure taken by France. The decision comes in response to her outspoken criticism of France's destabilizing policies in Africa. Now, Nathalie Yamb, definitely, like I said before, in the Francophone world, in terms of social media, same thing I do, right? We speak truth to power. We talk about the adversary. We expose the adversary in front of the world, right? So obviously, as you can see, she has been putting her foot so far up the adversary's rectal cavity that the French government banned her from the territory like a couple years ago. She's been banned from France for like a couple years, right? She is not allowed to set foot in the territory. Now, keep in mind, she's not a terrorist. She's not a jihadist. She is not an arms trafficker. She's not engaging in any violent activity. She is simply engaging in freedom of expression. She's simply engaging in public discourse, right? She's simply enjoying the democratic values given to her as a citizen of the world, engaging in freedom of expression, right? But because of that, because they don't agree with the type of expression that she's engaging in, the French government back in like 2022 already banned her from the country, right? Now, keep in mind, the same French government was inviting, terrorist jihadists from Mali for interviews on state TV. You remember? Take a look up on the screen. This one of them terrorists from northern Mali, right? Somehow he was able to obtain a visa. He was able to gain, entry into France. He was able to gain access to the government buildings because this was a interview that was conducted by, I believe, France 24. France 24 is a media company that is owned by the French government, right? So terrorist jihadists from Mali can enter French government buildings and get visas to enter the European Union. But Nathalie Yamb, who's never killed a single soul, cannot enter the European Union. That to me is comedy. Now, this article came out back in the year 2022, right? A few years ago. As you can see, France informs Nathalie Yamb of her ban on entering and staying in the country. The order, which was issued on January 12, 2022, was communicated to Nathalie Yamb on Friday, October 14th, by registered letter. RFI, that's another state-owned media company in France, was able to obtain a copy of the text. It notably accuses Nathalie Yamb, who is very active on social media, of encouraging the use of violence against symbols of the French presence in Africa, right? So because they allege, now I've never seen her call for violence against anybody or anything, very peaceful, beautiful woman. They allege that because maybe she's obviously she stands in opposition to French influence on the continent, as she should, as a black woman of intelligence. Now they accuse her of violence against French symbols on the continent. Why are there French symbols on the continent in the first place? Come on, bro. When it came to our symbols, our ancestral symbols, our spiritual systems, the European missionaries came and destroyed them, right? They came and destroyed them and burned them. They brought violence to our symbols, but now all of a sudden, you're bringing violence to the French symbols. You banned from France. Listen, I thought it was about the democratic freedom of expression. What happened? Bunch of hypocrite barbarians. Anyways, man, let me jump into this article that's talking about the sanctions, the recent sanctions. Take a look up on the screen. The European Union accuses Nathalie Yamb of engaging in an informational manipulation campaign aligned with Russian state objectives. Now, time out. That's the same thing they said about African Stream. If you remember African Stream, the platform, In fact, African Stream is actually going to close down. They're actually closing down because they're not able to support themselves financially ever since the United States State Department accused them of being a Russian asset and banning them on social media. So African Stream, that media company, I believe next month they announced they're going to shut down. And that's pretty much how it goes, right? If you go against the narrative that is set by the, foreign policy advisors at these governments, they're simply going to label you a Russian asset, right? Even me, myself, let's say I get influential to the level of, Nathalie Yamb, where the captain is inviting me to the presidential palace. They're going to label me as a Russian asset, even though I have 0 Russian associates in my personal life. I do not communicate or interact with Russians at all, but they'll just slap the label on you just because. Anyways, let's continue. It cites her public rhetoric that echoes Kremlin talking points. Okay, so her rhetoric, her commentary, right? Her freedom of expression, it echoes the Kremlin talking points, right? They're not saying that she's actually in cahoots with the Kremlin, but the stuff you're saying in their mind, in their eyes, it's in line with the Kremlin. So therefore, you are a Russian asset. Therefore, you are banned from Europe. What the hell? Anyway, let's continue. The latest EU measure builds on an escalating sanctions framework that began in October 2024, targeting individuals and organizations accused of aiding Russia's geopolitical objectives. Yamb's activities, the council argues, falls squarely within that pattern, combining ideological advocacy, political influence, and support for private military operations. Now, keep in mind, like I said, these are the same individuals that allow terrorist jihadists to do interviews on state TV, but they're saying that she's involved in supporting private military operations. Listen, Nathalie Yamb has never shot a gun at anybody a day in her life. Anyway, let's continue. France has already banned Nathalie Yamb from the territory back in January 2022, citing her quote-unquote recurring diatribes against French interests. Whoa, time out. So Black women, so African women are not allowed to speak their mind and express themselves when it comes to African geopolitical affairs. So African women are not allowed to speak against French interests on the African continent. What? Anyway, let's continue. This is ridiculous. Citing her recurring diatribes against French interests and warnings that her rhetoric could incite violence or foreign subversion. French authorities said her messages were fostering anti-French sentiment both in Africa and among the African diaspora. Now, time out. Do you see what the adversary is saying in that part of the article? They're saying that Nathalie Yamb is the reason why there's anti-French sentiment on the continent, right? They're blaming Nathalie Yamb for anti-French sentiment, right? They're not citing the historical grievances that us as African people would naturally have with the French government. No, not the constant assassinations and undermining our leaders and our economic systems and our geopolitical objectives. No, it's because of Nathalie Yamb. Let's continue. The United States reached a similar conclusion back in 2022 when the State Department labeled Nathalie Yamb as part of a Russian disinformation network linked to Prigozhin's influence operations. I thought it was about democracy and freedom of expression and women's rights. What happened to the women's rights? Anyway, so Nathalie Yamb on social media, she took to social media and she responded to the adversary directly, and she said this. Take a look up on the screen. An African woman talking about sovereignty. She must be a puppet. A Black woman denouncing exploitation. Naturally, she must be remote controlled. The decision of the Council of the European Union is not a sanction. It is a confirmation. The European Union, which in June 2025 continues to import gas, nuclear fuel, palladium, aluminum, lithium, cobalt, and fertilizer from Russia, has just proven what I've been denouncing for years. Their hypocrisy and contempt are systemic. So is their racism, their fear, and their colonialism. What they started, we will finish. Now, in her response, Nathalie Yamb basically says that you have decided to take, sanctions against me, take action against me, which essentially means that she is banned from the territory. She is not allowed to travel in the territory of any European Union member states. And not only that, I'm sure if she has any assets in Europe or in any European Union member state, obviously there's going to be a freeze on those assets. They might even be seized, right? So not only that, but I believe also when you are sanctioned, then even the companies and the banks and even citizens that are living in EU member states are not allowed to do business with you. So essentially, you are financially radioactive, at least in Europe, at least in the European Union, right? But when it comes to them, they're still engaging in commerce with Russia, right? They're still engaging in trade with Russia, right? So you're gonna call out Nathalie Yamb for her alleged, links to Russia, which I don't believe. I think that she's speaking truth to power in an elegant, articulate way. That not only is she elegant and articulate, but she's influential. She has the hearts and minds and the ears of the people in a way that you do not. So because of that, even though you are in bed with Russia, still getting money with Russia, you're going to attack her on the same basis that you could attack yourself for. A bunch of hypocrite barbarians, like I said. But anyways, before I get out of here, man, back to the hypocrisy, because that's what we got to really put on the screen. We got to talk about the blatant hypocrisy of the adversary. The same exact ones that preach about liberty and freedom of speech and freedom of expression, right? But as soon as Nathalie Yamb decides to engage in freedom of expression and decides to ask some questions and decides to actually question the validity of your economic and military influence on the continent, right? Now, all of a sudden, you want to come and bring out the sanctions. Now you want to ban her from the country, right? I thought it was about freedom of the press. Isn't that what they always talk about? Captain Ibrahim Traore, they always say, oh, what about the freedom of the press? What about the journalists? Oh, he's clamping down on the journalists. Where's the freedom of the press? But look how they betray their own values. Look how they betray their own doctrines. These, like I said, bro, the hypocrisy is too much. These are the same people that talk to us about freedom and human rights, but look how they violate a black woman's right to travel and speak freely. Now she's not even allowed to travel to Europe. She can't even speak how she wants to speak, or else in their minds, she's deemed as a criminal. But meanwhile, they're sitting at the dinner table having conversations with terrorist jihadists, men who are actually guilty of killing innocent African people. But those men aren't banned from the country. Those men aren't banned from the country. Those men are not under sanctions. And that's what I'm saying, man. It's just too much. The hypocrisy is just too much for me to take. And if you notice, brothers, they only appreciate a certain archetype of black women, right? You notice they don't talk all that black girl magic and women's rights and we need to go over to Africa and empower the women and girls. But they only empower the women who advance their agenda. They do not advocate or support the women who challenge their agenda or challenge their authority. And that's how it's always been, going back to the days of the colonial period. It's always been that way. The rebellious black woman, she was hanged and killed just like the black man. It was only the black woman that acquiesced, that was willing to play ball and capitulate, that was allowed to come into the big house and sleep on the floor, right, in the master bedroom. But the black woman that was rebellious, she was hanged and murdered just like the black man. Because I guarantee, if Nathalie Yamb was a black woman who was obedient, who was, like I said, not challenging authority, she was agreeable, non-confrontational, she was not trying to be controversial, listen, they would invite her in. She would be seen as safe and palatable. They would blast her all over the media with positive propaganda. They would have no issue. She would not be banned from nowhere. They love those type of black women. They love those type of women coming to the corporate office, smash them in the broom closet. They love those women. They do not want a black woman like Nathalie Yamb speaking truth to power in the face of the adversary. I guarantee if Nathalie Yamb was on social media like a bunch of other idiots talking about, girl, it's time to get a white man, listen, they would not be banning her from no country. But because she's speaking truth to power, because she's actually standing on ancestral business, now all of a sudden we got to ban her from the territory. We got to seize her assets. I thought it was about freedom of expression, the freedom of the press, and women's rights. What happened, bruh? It's crazy. It's crazy. But that's to be expected. Like I said, when you're a student of history, nothing surprises you, right? We already know how the adversary feels about women like Nathalie Yamb. When I see Nathalie Yamb, I see our foremothers, right? For example, take a look at this French account of the Haitian Revolution. What they said about the black woman of that time, right? To the bottom of the page, it said this: with the women, it was the same. When Chevalier, a black chief, hesitated at the sight of the scaffold, his wife shamed him and said, "You do not know how sweet it is to die for liberty." And refusing to allow herself to be hanged by the executioner, she took the rope herself and hanged herself. And to her daughters, who were going to execution with her, another woman gave courage and said, "Be glad, you will not be the mothers of slaves." So listen, this is what the French military seen back during the Haitian Revolution. They saw black women taking the rope and hanging them damn self because they were not scared of the adversary. They were not scared of the enemy, right? So the adversary knows very well when the black woman is in her right state of mind. He knows He knows what she's capable of. You see, right now, you know, some of them don't got their mind right at the current moment in time. It's okay. You know, we understand. But back in the day, you see, Nathalie Yamb, she's a throwback from back in the day, right? What they want Nathalie Yamb to do is to get with the program. Get with the program, right? Get with the Western sponsored program. Get you a white man, right? That's what they want Nathalie Yamb to do, right? But because she's staying in solidarity with the black man, now all of a sudden she's banned from Europe. Anyways, man, this is ridiculous. This is so ridiculous. Anyway, it's your boy Nathalie Yamb, back in the Billy SED. Cash App in the description. Support the channel. Support the Patreon, NTD1814. And I'm gone. Peace.
Told me she loved me and said that it's real. So independent, ain't signing no deal. Feel like a king and I'm up at Cap Henry. I'm in the citadel, top of the hill. Trying to run up and we let off a cannon. Secret location, I'm keeping it sealed. You ain't retaliate, Franco Medina. Came to the country and he got killed. You ain't retaliate, Rafi a man. Thought you was loyal, thought you was real. Didn't even want to come pick up the body. Had your man locked up, he died in the cell. Up at the palace, I'm throwing a party. Right on the south and I'm giving them hell. And my little shorty, she looking exotic. African features, she casting a spell. Run to the check like I work on my fitness. Wake up each morning and handle my business. Said that she love me, she want my genetics. Wanna get married and make it official. Wanna get married and have my babies. Up in the city, I'm riding Mercedes. Up in the city, they treat me like royalty. Feeling like Dolph, talking about lords. Spreading my wings and I had to get fly. Up in the top, an incredible vibe. Came from the bottom, I'm up in the sky. Give one look and said, baby, you fine. Wake up each morning and handle my business. They just be talking, you see me, I live it. Ride on my enemies, sounding like thunder. 1804, got that shit in my spirit. 1804 when I step in the building. 1804, that's word of my mother. Rock my women and die for my brother. Never gon' fall when I'm deep under pressure. Tell them we back and they better accept it. Move like a king, every step is divine. Ride on my enemies with no exception. Taking revenge and I'm taking what's mine. Pour up a drink and it's time that we toast. Watching my back, keep my enemies close. Only the family, I stick with my brothers. Cannon's position outside of the coast. Heavy artillery for the protection. Move like a general, stick to the code. Feel like a king when I'm up in the north. Beautiful women, they trying to get chose. Launch an invasion all over the south. Capture the capital with all my woes. Look at my energy and my demeanor. Dripping that ice and that's head to my toes. Lately I'm flexing all on the Americans. Flexing my muscle on missing my road. Just got a carriage just coming from London. Boy, that shit cash, I ain't taking no loans. Boy, that shit cash, that's fresh on the boat. Enemy know I got millions in gold. Enemy know I got choppers and cannons. How did I do it? They can't understand it. How did I do it? It's cause I'm relentless. Call me King Harry, my name is cemented. Call me King Harry, I'm up in the palace. Call me King Harry, I'm raising the status.